What's up guys, K-Pine here, and welcome back. In this video, I've got one of the most consistent teams you can run in the Hisui Cup, aka the Sinnoh Cup. Empoleon Lead with Drifblim and Toxicroak in the back. This team doesn't really have a dedicated save swap. How you play out the match all just kind of depends on what you see in the lead. So you may be asking me, K-Pine, what do you do on Gastrodon Leads? Those things are everywhere. Or what do you do on Hisuian Electrode Leads, as your team seems to be very weak to them? Well, you'll see how I handle that in just a little bit. In the first half of this video, I'll be showcasing a 4-1 set. In the second half, I'll be showing how to play out some of the other lead scenarios you can find yourself in. And with that, let's get into the battles. Alright, so getting into the first battle, we have Empoleon into Gastrodon. This is that exact lead we were talking about before. And pretty much all you need to do, just stay in. Throw the Hydro Cannon once you get it. It gets their shield every single time, as they want to preserve the health on the Gastrodon. I overfarm by 1 just in case they try to catch, but it really doesn't matter because they're not going to catch. They're just going to farm down your Empoleon all the way. That's fine. Your Empoleon gets taken out in 9 Mud Slaps. You bring in your Drifblim, and if your opponent's smart, like this one, they'll swap out right away to preserve their Gastrodon. So I bring in my Toxicroak to meet the Bastiodon. I throw this Mud Bomb on CMP, hoping it takes out the Bastiodon. And you'll see that was a mistake because it just doesn't. I think the better play would have been to just shield the Flamethrower, then counter down the Bastiodon to leave with 2 Mud Bombs to throw at the Gastrodon, and then hope Toxicroak can reach another Mud Bomb in the back to close it out. Because if they're leading Gastrodon, they normally have 2 Pokemon which are strong against Drifblim in the back that Toxicroak does very well against. So preserving the health on your Toxicroak is probably the better play. I tried out several ways of this matchup, of testing it, and you'll see in a later example that preserving the health on the Toxicroak is going to be the way to go. Because in this one, they just bring in a Bite Skuntank and that's just done. It just eats up Drifblim. So in the next battle, I lead Empoleon into another Gastrodon. So like last time, gonna stay in. Waterfalls do some good damage, but not as much as those super effective Mud Slaps. Gonna throw our Hydro Cannon, gets their shield, and the Gastrodon's just gonna farm on down. In comes our Drifblim. Like last time, they swap out right away. I'm gonna stay in and throw off this Icy Wind first, and then swap into my Toxicroak, trying to catch a Crunch, which I think I did right here. And in this situation, I don't shield my Toxicroak again either because of the Icy Wind debuff, and I'm hoping that my Toxicroak will just still be healthy enough to get off 2 Mud Bombs against the Gastrodon because of that Icy Wind debuff. And hopefully Drifblim can clean up in the back with a shield advantage, as long as it's not another Bite Skuntank. But we just don't make it in time, and in comes a Hisuian Electrode, and this is going to be a close match because Drifblim actually does somewhat fine here with a shield advantage because of the super effective Icy Winds. I allow my opponent to throw first, just so that I can throw my move on good timing, because it doesn't really matter because I'm going to shield their move anyways. And they let that Icy Wind through. Very surprising to me. But I think they realized that I would have reached another Icy Wind before they reached 2 more Wild Charges anyway. So we're able to take that one against a Gastrodon Lead. The next match, Hisuian Electrode Lead. 3 terrible leads in a row. You switch into your Toxicroak. I know that may seem very counterintuitive because it's like Toxicroak's your only real counter to the Hisuian Electrode. But you'll see. If they're a little slow on the swap, they will allow my Toxicroak to get to 2 moves, in which I want to shield this up because I want to make it seem like to my opponent that I have a good answer to Hisuian Electrode in the back, so I want to bring shields down. And now that the Gastrodon's super low, I'm going to come in with my Drifblim, And I'm just going to hex it on down. Because that way, if the Hisuian Electrode comes back in, it's going to have to face a loaded Drifblim with all this energy. And it's definitely not going to appreciate that. So in comes the Hisuian Electrode, going to throw off this first Icy Wind. Oh, and in addition, if they're running a Hisuian Electrode lead, Empoleon and Drifblim tend to do good against their back line. But since they can't really use their Hisuian Electrode to take out both of my Pokemon, it's allows one of them to sweep the game. So I'll let first Wild Charge go on my Drifblim because I'm pretty sure they're at the back-to-back. And that allows me to keep the shield for my Empoleon and farm down against the Electrode. They bring in a Froslass, and that's good for me because I'm going to survive a Shadow Ball. And I'll be able to get to this last Hydro Cannon to take out the Froslass because those Powder Snows are double resisted. This Hydro Cannon will take out the Froslass. And it just depends if I'm able to KO the Electrode in one Waterfall. I am, and we take another very close one on another very bad lead. The fourth match, Empoleon into Bibarel. Pretty neutral matchup, but I'd say still positive for Empoleon since we're both hitting for resisted on the fast moves, but I hit for neutral with the Drill Peck. My opponent swaps into Toxicroak there. Not sure what they were thinking because I'm going to throw Drill Peck at the Bibarel, but Drill Peck's super effective against Toxicroak, which is kind of weird. This is key though. I let the Toxicroak I overfarm to let the Toxicroak throw 2 Sludge Bombs first. I don't want a lot of health on my Drifblim because Bibarel absolutely walls Drifblim. So it's just going to farm down and get all that energy. If I allow the Toxicroak to throw a second Sludge Bomb against my Drifblim, the Bibarel is going to get like no energy. And that would be great because I'm not going to be threatened by any charge moves. I come back in with my Empoleon here. Probably should have come in with a Toxicroak as if they're leading Bibarel. They have something strong against Toxicroak in the back. And I realized that as soon as I bring in the Empoleon, so I'm like, shoot. Now I sort of gotta preserve all this health on the Empoleon. So I'm gonna be shielding up Surfs at this point, just so I can keep that health in prediction that it is something strong against Toxicroak, and it is. It's a Gliscor. So I'm gonna throw off this Hydro Cannon. This is gonna get their first shield. I'm gonna force them to throw before I get to another Hydro Cannon. And since I'm counting their wing attacks, they have to get to an EQ to take out my Toxicroak. A Night Slash won't do it. They were only at 1 residual wing attack, and after they took out my Empoleon, and since it's 10 to an EQ and 8 to a Sludge Bomb, I will outpace, and I can just counter down the Bibarel for another good game. Well played to my opponent. The 5th match, Empoleon against Froslass. Great lead. They swap in Lucario, and if you swap in your Toxicroak after only 1 Waterfall, you can counter down the Lucario completely before they reach a Shadow Ball. So if they throw a move before they faint, you know it's either 1, a Power Up Punch, or 2, a Dynamic Punch, of which both you survive and take back switch. Next match, Toxicroak Lead. Swap into your own Toxicroak, and you're going to want to hope that they either do 1, stay in UNCMP, or 2, switch in a Froslass into your Toxicroak, like right here. That way, your Drifblim doesn't have to face the Froslass in the back end. And even better, my opponent throws on CMP right here, allowing me to get off this Mud Bomb, where I can then bring in my Empoleon and farm down the Froslass, where I can then have a Drill Peck to threaten the Toxicroak that comes back in. They're going to throw a move. I'm going to let it go. Even if it was a Shadow Ball, which I think it probably should have been, I would have been able to survive it and throw off this Drill Peck against the Toxicroak, which would take it out or get a shield, their final shield. And after this, I'm going to insta swap into my Drifblim and hope it has a good matchup in the back. Toxicroak double Ghost maybe, but no, it's their own Bastiodon, and it's a little problematic. I'm going to throw off this first Shadow Ball. And I need to get to a second Shadow Ball to put their Bastiodon and Waterfall, farm down range for my Empoleon, where then I can leave with another move to throw out the Toxicroak. I do. I sort of delay my tap there on the last Hex so it doesn't register, so I could get a little more farm on my Empoleon so I could leave with this Drill Peck. Which we do. Bastiodon goes down, leave with the Drill Peck loaded. Toxicroak doesn't have a move, and we're able to take out the Toxicroak and win another bad lead scenario. All right, Empoleon into Bastiodon. Great lead. And now the key thing about a Bastiodon lead is if they switch in like a Toxicroak or Lucario, obviously you're going to come into your Drifblim. But if they safe swap like a Drapion or a Skuntank or something like that, you don't need to swap into your Toxicroak. Your Toxicroak has a better matchup against the Bastiodon than your Empoleon does. So just stay in with your Empoleon. Take out the Drapion or whatever it is, and then you have your Toxicroak for the Bastiodon still. It's a fantastic matchup. And if you'll notice in this one, like last time, I let the Toxicroak throw 2 Sludge Bombs against my own Drifblim before I took it out again, so I minimize the amount of farm for the Bastiodon when it comes back in. That's also a very key thing to remember as well. My opponent makes it easy for me with their own Drifblim. They just go straight Icy Winds, which allows me to no-shield it and not have to worry about giving up any of my shields. But it doesn't matter. If they went built up to the Shadow Ball and grabbed my shields, I still would have been able to take out the Drifblim with my Empoleon, where Toxicroak could still clean up the Bastiodon matchup in the back pretty easily. So it didn't really make a difference there. Another match, Empoleon into another Hisuian Electrode. So like last time, switch into your Toxicroak. See what they want to do. My opponent farms up some, then brings in another Gastrodon. Like last time, they were slow on the swap. It's going to allow me to get to 2 Mud Bombs as long as I throw with good timing to not allow any extra Mud Slaps. Make sure you do that. Second Mud Bomb comes through. This will most likely get their shield. It does, and that's fantastic for me, because now, like last time, I can come in with my Drifblim again, farm all the way down, and leave with a lot of energy and a move to threaten that Hisuian Electrode. This one does have Water Pulse. Kind of unfortunate, because if they reached another Water Pulse, which I don't think they did, I wasn't counting. I was counting, but I didn't think they reached it in time. I would have to shield their Water Pulse. Empoleon comes in to meet my Drifblim. It's not Hisuian Electrode. I go straight for the Shadow Ball as they are down a shield, and I'm expecting them to not want to go down 2 shields. Very key right here. I could have thrown my Drill Peck. Drill Peck's the right move to throw because it's neutral to a Grass and Electric type, but I wait until they throw their first Wild Charge. If I throw my first Drill Peck before that, it won't knock out the Hisuian Electrode and they have no need to shield. If I wait for them to throw their Wild Charge first, Empoleon wins CMP, of which would allow me to either get their shield or take out the Electrode. Very key feature right there. I let the first Wild Charge go on my Empoleon because I know I'm going to have to shield one for my Drifblim. And I have to farm down with Hex, just barely allowing us to get to another Shadow Ball to take out their Empoleon. And we win another very close game with a bad lead. Another one into Gastrodon. This one I play out where I preserve the health on my Toxicroak, and you'll see that ends up being the right decision and is the reason why I think it's the better decision to do in this kind of situation. They bring in Licky Licky, and I'm, again, just like I mentioned earlier with the Bastiodon situation, counter all the way down. They will reach 2 Body Slams, so I am going to have to give up both my shields. I'm just going to load up on all this energy. Second Body Slam comes through, gets my second shield. Now I counter down and have tons of energy. most likely their own Gastrodon will come back in. It does. I throw right away on what is a CMP tie. The Gastrodon lets it go. They're gonna be throwing off a Body Slam. I should just barely survive this. I do, and I'm gonna swap right into my Drifblim right away. And in comes an Empoleon. I have one win condition here. Bait with the Icy Wind, so I survive a Hydro Cannon, which I do, and then land a Shadow Ball. By doing this, it gets their Empoleon in farm down range for my Toxicroak, and a single counter farm down range for my Toxicroak, which is perfect. And we get to throw this last Mud Bomb at the Gastrodon, where again, we take another very close match. And hopping into what I think is the final battle, Empoleon into Drifblim Lead. Go straight Hydro Cannon, throw it right away. Your opponent's gonna Icy Wind like 90% of the time, but you still have to respect it with the shield because you want good alignment on the back end. And if they do bait, this allows them to get to a Shadow Ball right before you get to another Hydro Cannon, which again, you double shield. If they go for the Shadow Ball this time, you do have the ability to farm down all the way before they get to another move. But I panic and throw another Hydro Cannon. Luckily, I get their shield. This allows them to take out my Empoleon. But this gives me a free hex on my own Drifblim against whatever they have in the back. And most Drifblims will have like an Empoleon in the back. This one doesn't. But the ones that do have an Empoleon, you have the hex advantage. They reach a Shadow Ball before they reach a Hydro Cannon. Very helpful. But this one ends up having 2 Mons weak to Toxicroak. Fantastic. Throw the first Mud Bomb. And then counter all the way down on this Drapion. Throw 4 counters for good timing. Throw off this Mud Bomb. This can do some hefty double super effective damage on the Bastiodon. And I'm just gonna commit to the counter down. Hopefully we get it in time. We don't. That's okay. Drifblim survives a Stone Edge. That'll allow us to get to this Icy Wind to just finish off the match in another situation. So with this team, as long as you don't make any severe misplays, you're gonna win those positive lead scenarios against like a Froslass or a Drifblim a lot. And hopefully in those bad lead scenarios, if you play it out the way I told you, you will be able to flip more matchups than you think possible. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.